Hello, everyone, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the review of the new supernatural psychological sports horror thriller film, Him. And this film is co-written and directed by Justin Tifton, produced by Jordan Peele. It stars Marlon Wayans, Tyriq Withers, and Julia Fox. This film is pretty much centered around the trials of a young up-and-coming football player who trains in an isolated compound with an aging near-retired football player. So you read that synopsis and you're like, okay, it's your basic not horror, but basic sports film. How is this a horror film? Well, I wouldn't even call it a horror film. I'm gonna tell you that off the bat. It's not really a horror film. It's more of a psychological thriller than a horror film. Now, in parts, it gets a little horrific, in a scene or two, but nothing I would classify as a horror film, at least in my eyes. But whatever. This film was pretty high on my list. I was excited to see, number one, a football film, being a huge football fan, also being a Jordan Peele fan, right? That's another check. And Marlon Wayans, who, I enjoy Marlon Wayans for what he is and who he is as a performer, a comedian, and everything. And every now and then he'll give us a nice nugget of a drama, a serious role. And he, believe it or not, Marlon Wayans can act. If you ever saw Requiem of a Dream, oh my God, what's the other film? It was just on the tip of my tongue. But the dude can act. It isn't just Scary Movie and the Wayans brothers and white chicks. He actually is a really, really good actor. So I wanted to see him in this different type of role as the main antagonist. So I was excited about that. I went into this movie blind, so to speak. I knew about the movie. I knew what the movie was about. Saw the trailers and all this here. So I wasn't blind in that sense. But leading up to the film's release, the Rotten Tomato score dropped. And when I say dropped, it dropped. They released the Rotten Tomato score, and it was 31%. And that was the day before I went to see it. And then the day I went to see it, it dropped even more to 28%. I don't know what it is right now. It really doesn't matter, but it didn't look too good. I didn't read any reviews. I didn't watch any reviews. Didn't listen to any reviews. I just wanted to go see it for myself because I was excited for the movie. I wasn't overinflated with like, oh man, this is going to be great. This is the next big Jordan Peele film. I didn't go into it like that, and thank God I didn't, because this isn't Get Out. This isn't Us. This is Him. This is a film from Justin Tifton. So it's not a Jordan Peele film per se. Yes, he produced it, but that's it. He just produced it. This movie was good. Really, really good. I don't know what the critics are tripping on. I don't know what they saw that I didn't see, or maybe they saw something, or maybe I don't know, but vice versa. I don't know how it went, but I really, really enjoyed Him. Now, I will say this. Did it reinvent the wheel? No, it didn't. Was it on the nose with a lot of symbolism throughout the film? Yes, very on the nose. You really didn't have to scratch your head too much with this movie. Actually, not at all. This was paint by numbers symbolism. You knew exactly what they were saying in this film. And I guess that's why I appreciated it so much. You know, I didn't have to think too hard. I was in it, and I knew exactly what they were trying to tell me, and I loved it for that reason. No, it's not a thought-provoking film like that. You know, it's not one that's going to keep you guessing to the end and things of that nature. It's just a movie, and that's fine. You know, every movie doesn't have to be great. You know, it doesn't have to make you question your mortality. You know what I'm saying? It's something just simple. Just sit down and enjoy. What I enjoyed the most about this movie was somebody that I ranted about a few seconds ago, and that was Marlon Wayans. Marlon Wayans, bruh. What a role. This arguably, and this is without me sitting down and rewatching all of his previous work, but this, you know, off the top of my head, memory wise, of everything that I've saw him in, his best performance from Marlon Wayans. It was a perfect balance of Marlon Wayans. Yes, he was comedic, but not comedic. You know, he wasn't what was his character name in Don't Be a Menace? I can't remember his character name. That just off the wall, goofy, stupid character, or his goofy character in the Scary Movie films. That he's making another one, by the way. No, it not that type of funny. Just funny. You know, he'll crack a joke, but his ability to switch from comedic to serious in a blink of an eye in a lot of these scenes was so seamless and so fitting for the tone of this film. It just worked. Everything about his performance worked. Best part of the movie, Tyriq Withers. The only other thing I've seen him in, well, I think he was on Atlanta for like an episode, one of the episodes of Atlanta a few years back. But most recently, and I mean super recent, like last month or the month before last, I Know What You Did Last Summer, that kind of a, not a reboot, but legacy sequel to that franchise. I hated that movie, and I hated everything about that movie, including him. I mean, everything about that movie I didn't like. And so when I realized that was him, that, no pun intended, in the movie, and he's going to be the main protagonist in this movie, I was like, oh, that was the one thing that gave me pause. But he did a decent job. Now, what I will say about his performance, he wasn't all around great in this movie. You know, he had a couple of scenes here, one in particular that was so good that I immediately said, okay, this dude got it. He's gonna be something bigger than what I ever imagined. Where was this? And I Know What You Did Last Summer. That would have helped that movie out so much if he would have gave this type of performance. This dude is money. But what bothered me about his performance, and when after I left the movie on the way home, I thought about it. I don't think it was his fault. I think it was the direction. But he didn't really emote. You know, he didn't really, his facial expression was like stoic throughout the whole movie. Every now and then he'll smile, or, you know, slightly change a facial expression, but he had the same facial expression the entire movie. I'll say for 80% of the film, it was like a little worrisome, because some things were going on around him where I kind of needed him to emote, and I didn't get that from his character. But I was doing the emoting for him. But like I mentioned, 2 or 3 scenes in this movie where he went all in, man. He just gave himself over to this character, where he has a speech and I think towards the middle of this movie where he was talking about his dad and all this other stuff. It was like, oh my God, this is gut wrenching. This is so good. It was powerful. It was so powerful. I was like, man, sold. Sign me up. Sign me up for anything else he's in going forward. Loved his performance. And I mentioned the direction. I don't know much about Justin Tipton, but I will say this movie looked great. The visually, this was a good looking movie. The shots in this film, I've sat there and wondered, like, man, we don't deserve the visuals that we're getting in this movie. This is a simple movie, but there are some real epic shots in this film, and the color palettes and everything look great. Where he stumbles is kind of the pacing. It seems like we get scenes where it's drawn out. It takes its time, and then we get the very next scene, and we're just flashing through it. You could have flushed out a little more of this story. We could have spent about 10, maybe even 15 minutes more of this movie, and it could have been excellent. But it just felt rushed at parts. But it is what it is. But that was my only flaw. But like I said, I don't think he's a seasoned director. Maybe they'll come over in more time. But at one point, just to deviate for a second, at one point he was strongly considered. I mean, they were in talks, him and Marvel Studios, to direct Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, but it fell through, and it went to Dustin. I forgot his name. He's directing the new Spider-Man movie now, but who did an excellent job. But that's how visual he is. That's how good of a director he is as far as that is concerned. And so I'm not worried about him moving forward. But this was a good movie as far as the visuals and how he set everything up. Sliding into the negative aspect of this film, I touched in on a few pieces of it, but that third act, bro, I just can't get over the third act of this movie. And I think this is probably where a lot of critics bailed on this movie, was the third act. Everything leading up to the third act was, so good. It was so good. And, to keep it in football terms, since this is technically a football movie, they got to the goal line and kind of fumbled the ball. They didn't turn it over. They didn't lose possession, but they fumbled. The movie just in the third act, it just went full bore crazy, and it didn't need to be. The tone that was set in the first two acts was a real good tone. The psychological aspect of it all, I loved that. And then it just went crazy. It just went insane on us. I don't know, man. It just didn't work for me. The climactic showdown, so to speak, between our protagonist and antagonist, that was so disappointing. I was so disappointed by that because it went so fast. It was a blink and you miss it type of scene. It didn't. The build up to it was better than the execution of the final showdown, and I was just let down by that. I guess the greedy portion of me wanted more. I wanted more substance there, and I didn't get it. But it's not really that scene as much as that bothered me. It was the scene after that ended the movie. The real final battle at the end, because the final battle wasn't the final battle. But so it was that last scene that just took me out. I was like, why are we doing this in this movie? Like I said, I get the symbolism. I get what all they was telling, and it does fit the movie per se, but it just went a little extra. You know, they added salt to something that was already full of seasoning, and I didn't think it had to go as hard as it did in the end. It was just too much. It just felt like they were doing too much just for shock value. That's what I got out of it. Could be 100% wrong, but on first viewing, that's how I felt. But it is what it is. Aside from that, depending on who you are and how you judge films or judge anything in life, the movie was great. I'm not mad at it. Even with all that being said, how the movie ended, and normally when movies hinge on that, especially when you're reviewing them or critiquing them like I do, I that can make and break a movie. But this didn't really break it. It bended, but it didn't break it for me, and that's a rarity. This is like the first time I actually feel this way. Because under normal circumstances, I'd have been mad, but I'm not. I enjoyed so much of this movie, I can't even get mad. Him gets a letter grade of a B. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm shocked. I'm shocked by what the critics are saying or whatever. However, I guess after I finish my review, I'm gonna go and listen to theirs because I don't understand. I don't understand why it was so much hate for this movie. It isn't perfect, and I'll never claim that it's perfect, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, but you know what's more important than that? I want to know, did you enjoy it? Did you check out him, and what were your feelings of the film? Or have you not checked it out yet, and you're still on the fence on checking it out? I highly recommend it, but I would like to know your thoughts. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, don't forget about YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the Concession Stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of him. Want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.